Very good morning to everyone and welcome to another LogiSYM webinar. My name is Joe Lombardo and I am the editor of the LogiSYM magazine. Also joining me is our president of the Logistics and Supply Chain Management Society, Dr. Ramon Krishna. The topic of our webinar today is a very interesting one. It's the post-pandemic logistics sector in Hong Kong, which is also going to open up into a very interesting discussion on what's happening in the Greater Bay Area. Our guests today are Benjamin Wong, who is the head of Transport and Industrial Sectors Invest Hong Kong. We've got Michael Zankel, Regional Director for East Asia for Gerber Weiss in Hong Kong. And Alex Koo, who is the CEO of Chevalier AOC Freight Services, Freight Express Holdings Limited. Gentlemen, good morning and welcome to our webinar.
Morning.
Good morning.
Let me start off with a very simple question to all of you. If you can share with us a little bit about your background, experience, and briefly some of your significant achievements in your career. Let's start off with Alex, and then we go to Michael and then Benjamin in that sequence.
Okay. Yeah, we are the freight forwarding company that since in 1978. Okay. Now we are one of the subsidiary of the listed company in Hong Kong called Superior Group. Okay. So we have different from the other traditional freight forwarder is we do some specification on different cargos, specific cargo, such as the project cargo, the pharmaceutical cargo, e-commerce, aviation parks. Okay, so we provide different service to different needs of the customer. So yeah, we're quite specialized. Nowadays, we think this is one of the role that the Hong Kong logistics player need to follow. Yeah, otherwise it is very difficult to survive in nowadays. Yeah.
Right. Okay. Thanks, Alex. Michael.
Thank you very much, Joe. Michael Zankel. I'm working for Gebrüder Weiss. Very well pronounced, Joe. Thank you very much. I'm nationality Austrian from Vienna. I grew up in Austria, Vienna. Joined the logistics sector in 1987. And for the first 10 years of my life, and that's actually interesting for later, I developed Vienna as a gateway for Eastern Europe. And when I came to Hong Kong in 2006, I saw, well, not the same, but I saw some parallels using Hong Kong as a hub for China and Eastern Asia, which I've been doing the last 15 years now. And 3 years ago, recently, after running my own business for a few years, I joined this company called Gebrüder Weiss, which is truly the oldest freight forwarder in the world, started 1474, so a few years before Mr. Columbus reached what he thought was India at that time. And yeah, so I'm leading a region headquartered in Hong Kong with China, Japan, Southeast Asia, and now also Korea, started in June 2020.
Excellent. Thank you, Michael. Benjamin, would you?
Sure. Thank you, Joe. Now, I'm Benjamin from Hong Kong government. What I do is our department is responsible for investment promotion for Hong Kong, covering the transport and industrial industries. I used to work for the container port here in Hong Kong and also DHL. So my own background is a bit of mix of air, sea, and also, of course, now government. So very much looking forward to this session.
Okay, excellent. Thank you, gentlemen, for the brief introduction. So let me start off first with our service providers, Alex and Michael, because clearly we are going through many challenges in the industry. Can you share with us what are the challenges facing your organization in general today? Partly due to the COVID disruption, but in general, the economic balance and rebalancing that we are seeing around the Asia-Pacific region.
Yes. Maybe let me start first, okay? So since we have been working with our office in US for so many years, since I think since the day one, so we rely on the trade between the US and Hong Kong, US and China. Unfortunately, start in I think it's in almost 1.5 years ago. There will be some trade conflicts in between China and also US. I think back to the last quarter of 2018. Okay, so start from this one. So we see quite a lot of at that moment, we see quite a lot of the demand for the shipment from China. They move the product immediately, yeah, to use the air freight into US, okay. Suddenly the volume increased, but suddenly, maybe for 1 or 2 months later, it's very silent, especially for the Chinese New Year, okay, very silent, no cargo. And other than, then we see that there will be some resolve or release from maybe they talk each other to country, and then maybe something more peaceful, the environment, and then we get back for maybe 1 or 2 months better recover.
Right.
But later on, then is a problem is after the Chinese New Year is last year's. We see that there are a lot of the factories, especially in the Guangdong provinces, start to move out to other Asia countries. Okay, that's we talk about later today. And also we enjoy this kind of the movement, but this what we regarding is some short-term gain but long-term pain, because we understand the production is moved to other countries. Okay, and later on that is social unrest in Hong Kong. It's in May and June starting. This also discourage the tourists to come to Hong Kong. So the retail industry, one of the logistic industry provide for the retail industry in Hong Kong, is also suffer. Okay, right. And after the last year, the back to the several months ago, that the coronavirus is another problem for our industry. Sure. So in China, and then later on they move into west, from the east to the west. Okay, so this make us some impact. First of all, the demand drop quite a lot. Okay, regarding for no matter sea freight or the air freight, because the consumer, they don't want to buy too much, no matter in Hong Kong or in the world. The second is about especially for this, I think 2 or 3 months before, is about the passenger flight is stopped, okay, between different countries. So the price for the air freight go rapidly, go very increase, very, very much. Okay,
so Alex, how
unaffordable.
So Alex, I understand all the challenge you have, but how are you adapting and adjusting your company to meet the changing situations that you're in? Because clearly there are a lot of concerns or stress or pressures. How are you coping with this?
Yeah, what our company do is, this is a good question. What our company do is, we already mentioned that we do quite a specialized or diversification of our service. Okay, so 2 types of the service during this part is still booming. The first one is about the e-commerce.
Right.
Okay, because the people stay home and then they buy a lot of the product from the web, and then they have the time to spend for the web. Okay, so this one we provide quite a lot of the service for local domestic transportation and some international e-commerce, their product to different countries. Some also they use for personal use. Is about the what we call is the PPE, the personal protective equipment. Okay, such like the mask or some kind of different product to protect themselves. The other area that we quite focus is about the pharmaceutical. Okay, the pharmaceutical, they are now quite a lot of the I think it's the test kits, yeah, for the coronavirus test kits to send to other country. We provide coachings for all the pharmaceutical products, so we get quite a lot of the demand and also the revenue from this sector. It's about increased for more than 10 times, yeah, than before.
Alex, thank you for that summary. We'll come back to that later on. Michael, could I have your view on the same question? What are the challenges your organizations are facing, and how are you adjusting to this new norm or new environment that we're working in?
Thank you very much. Well, first of all, I think it's a little too early to say we are post-pandemic, because we're in the middle of it.
Right.
If you look around the world, it looks quite nice and safe in Hong Kong at the moment. It looks nice and safer in some other countries. In some countries, it pops up again in different places, like you saw in Beijing, in Germany yesterday. And then there are parts of the world where it's still, developing, like in Latin America, maybe in Africa, in the US still, it's not post-pandemic. It's
Sure.
we're in a different stage of the pandemic, I would say right now. So from a logistics side, I've been going through many crises in the last 33 years. And I think it's also our job in the logistics industry to find solutions in crisis, actually. It's not to hide away from them. We can't win against the virus. We just have to find solutions to deal with it. And how people react to things is usually the impact of everything, right?
Michael,
And
I agree with you that the pandemic is not over and we don't know what the landing zone will be later on, but doing nothing is not an option. So I'm sure you're doing something that you can share with us what it is you're doing to reposition yourselves in the evolving landscape.
Yeah, perhaps in the interim until we emerge out of this period, this funny period that we're in.
Okay, we're looking long term, definitely. And so honestly, the changes have not been too dramatic. There have been periods, as already pointed out by Alex. There was a period in February where everyone was very nervous because nothing moved for us in Hong Kong. Because as we know, if China doesn't move, Hong Kong doesn't move. That's a clear fact and cannot be battled. What happened later is China opened again and the virus moved over to other parts of the world. And then we basically had to deal with an incredible amount of cargo that suddenly came out. So we had a small little normal in March again. Things were actually moving quite well and we had quite an okay month. And then as soon as the pandemic arrived other places, everyone was afraid of the demand side, of course, because the rest of the world has always been for us the demand side, especially Europe. Alex is more the US, I'm more Europe-centric with an Austrian-German company. And we saw that this will change and it has been going down 20–30%. It has been compensated by what you call the PPE goods. So it looked like everything was great and we made nice profits and we put charters into the market and we put extra air cargo capacity into the market because as we know, half of the air cargo capacity disappeared overnight, which is the passenger flights. Some passenger flights were remodeled into freighters, P2F they called it, but that's not really a big amount. So we used them, we used charters, but most of that moving on these charters was PPE goods, was masks, was gloves and all that stuff. And this is coming to an end now. It's slowing down. And now we're facing the new reality, which is a demand, which is about 20–30% down in the market. There is still no air capacity here. So the supply and demand is still kind of not too disrupted.
So putting that into context, Michael, Alex, but I want to direct this question to Benjamin first. Just short, succinct, what are the 2 to 3 challenges you see logisticians operating in the region being faced with today? Benjamin, followed by Michael, then Alex, 2 to 3 comments.
Right. I think the main challenge would be on how fast the market will be picking up. Because obviously, as mentioned by Alex and also Michael, that factories and a lot of economies they have basically stopped, and the demand basically is only on food and also medical. So now, what about the rest? So, for example, in terms of clothing or in terms of other demands. So I think for us as a government, what we are looking at is how do we prepare to create a better platform for the industry. For logistics, of course, connectivity is important, and Greater Bay Area would provide a expansion of our base from not just Hong Kong, but also to the area, which is also very immediate in terms of the demand, in terms of, for example, consumer products, and also supply in terms of manufactured finished products.
Okay. What about yourself, Michael? Coming back to you. 2 to 3 issues or challenges we are faced with today. You've mentioned belly capacity being out of the market. You've mentioned the end of the PPE wave. So, succinct for the listeners, 2 or 3 questions, or 2 or 3 issues. Sorry.
Well, one issue connected with the supply is basically the balance of demand and supply. Shipping lines have made blank sailings, So they reduced the capacity, I would say artificially. Ships are standing around, but that also costs money. So the big challenge is, will demand grow again? Can the economies be pushed up again? Are the governmental measures that are in place now, which are obviously limited till maybe November or end of this year, good enough to have a long-term impact? I think that's the one thing. And the other challenge is, how will our industry survive that? You know, we saw a lot of companies are, you know, in trouble if things don't work for 2 or 3 months. We've been quite spoiled in our markets maybe over the last 20, 30 years. So everything went kind of okay, but now we see that people, you know, have problems struggling after 3 or 4 months of no business. So maybe our cushions are not big enough and we have to rethink this and reframe this maybe.
Thank you, Michael. I like the balancing supply and demand. I don't know if you saw CMA CGM announced today that they're implementing a $200 per box GRI or peak season surcharge. It's so funny, yeah?
Yeah.
What about yourself, Alex?
I totally agree with Benjamin and also Michael about the situation, the critical situation for us to face. So some point I want to add on is about because of the higher price of the air freight and also the sea freight, as just you mentioned, Raymond, that no matter it is peak or it is not non-peak season, the shipping lines still charge too much. Okay, so this make our customer they consider whether they want to ship at this moment or not, because some of the product they even cannot afford to move by the air freight. Okay, for example, the peak season, I think for the peak, very peak price in the last during these 2 months is about, for air freight from Hong Kong to US, it's about more than $10 per kilos. Okay, but when the time for the last year in this period is about is less than 2.5. Okay, that means it's four times already more than the last period. Okay, so this one make the demand for the product to move from one country to another country make more difficult. Okay, so this is the real situation that we face. The second wave of this situation is about, if they cannot ship the product out, then how can they collect the money? Okay. The other thing affect our industry is we need to watch very close and work very close with our customer whether they are able to pay. Okay. Before we only consider where they are willing to pay only, but now we need to consider where they are able to pay. Okay. So this back to the I think some situation, totally agree with Michael, that to see how the government, no matter in China or in Hong Kong, to support the manufacturing, that they come to work and then they can come to pay. Okay.
Thank you, Alex.
Yeah.
It's great. Clearly there is a shift of constraints, capacity, pricing, demand, and also how people are repositioning the manufacturing out of China, as we just heard. But let me just turn to Benjamin. Benjamin, for you, this must be also a big concern for the government and for the future. What is the outlook of future role of Hong Kong as a logistics hub? And you can share with us maybe some of your slides on the key issues.
Right. We are still very confident on the logistics industry here in Hong Kong, because after all, no matter what happens, goods have to be moved. It may just be a matter of changing in the structure of the demand and supply, and also the kind of things which is going through Hong Kong. Now, I think there are a few big projects that we are having right now. As I mentioned, connectivity is very important. So I'll share the slide, first of all, for our airports. Now, for our airport, we are having an expansion, which is building our third runway, which will be increasing our capacity for air cargo about doubled. Our last year, the throughput is 4.8 million tons, which is about the capacity already. And with the expansion, then we will be having the capacity increased to 9 million tons per year. Now, of course, with the runway, then actually we hope that we will be able to drive more air cargoes into Hong Kong. And at the same time, you can see that there are some few bridges in this slide. The bottom one is the Hong Kong-Zhuhai-Macau Bridge, which is bringing cargo, no matter air or sea, from Western Pearl River Delta into Hong Kong. If you look at the whole picture of logistics, including sea, you can also see, I think a lot of people mentioned about the competition between Yantian and Hong Kong, the two seaports. With this bridge, we are able to draw cargo from the area of Western Pearl River Delta, which means that we are moving the battle line from between the Yantian and Hong Kong ports to the western side, which more or less Hong Kong can monopolize. So I think this is the, as a government, of course, that's our main job to create the connectivity. That's the hardware side. And then at the same time, we are also working on the software side. For example, the free trade agreement with the Southeast Asian countries. And then at the same time, the Greater Bay Area, expanding our hinterland immediately into the area. And the first item on that will be increasing mobility, no matter it's mobility on people or mobility on cargo.
Benjamin, you talked about the expansion of the Hong Kong airport, third runway, and I think also you have a plan to extend also the terminals. But isn't that also a risk? Because maybe what if Shenzhen also expands their airport? Mm-hmm. What about Guangzhou expands their airport? How will you compete in those very proximity type of challenges?
Right. I think for Hong Kong airport, in the logistics industry, including actually seaport, actually our competition with the mainland side, actually, of course, we're neighbors, so the competition is unavoidable. But then at the same time, Hong Kong is a free trade free port, whereas the mainland side, it is very heavily regulated, another duty zone. Now, of course, they have also their free trade zone, which is trying to reduce the burden in terms of the custom processing, documentation, and everything. Right. However, from what we gathered, actually, very often the documentation involved still is quite heavy. Of course, it's less than, for example, going directly into, say, Shenzhen or other places. But then there is still certain level of documentation have to be done. Now, of course, I mentioned Greater Bay Area. Greater Bay Area, the purpose actually is that instead of competing among us, for example, Shenzhen, Hong Kong, we will be able to reduce this barrier and make us collaborate more. Of course, there are different ideas floated. One idea which have been mentioned on the seaside actually is that to consolidate all the ports, Hong Kong port, Shenzhen port, Guangzhou port, and to build a new port which is away from each other and actually is way out into the river mouth, so that we will be able to coordinate all the activities better, and then also to avoid competition, and at the same time, we will be able to build all those infrastructure supporting that new container port much better, highway and everything. But of course, it's only one idea floated. Sure. What I would like to drive here is that the possibility is actually, the potential is actually very big for this kind of new arrangements. So,
Benjamin,
yes.
Benjamin, sorry to interrupt you, but do you have a slide that shows where this new potential port would be located?
No, because it's only an idea floated. Okay. It's nowhere near to be actually, because as you could imagine, right now we've got 3 major ports here in the area, Shenzhen, Guangzhou, and Hong Kong. For all 3 of us come together and agree on something like that actually it will take a lot of discussion. Right. And so actually this is something that, as I mentioned, is only something that which has been floated, but which also shows the potential of what we
Benjamin, that's very positive, hearing that there's a collaboration and there's also a way to find solutions. But earlier on, you just mentioned about a free trade agreement between Hong Kong and ASEAN countries.
Right.
Correct. How would that work if you had a neutral ports around the Greater Bay Area? How would the free trade agreement actually function in a smooth way?
Right. The way we view for example, agreements like the free trade agreement of Hong Kong with other countries is that for companies which they are looking at projects, then for example, mainland companies, they could actually see what kind of a free trade agreement they have from China. And also what kind of free trade agreements that we have here in Hong Kong, and then decide how they structure their project and how they structure their route of trading.
Here's a curveball for you, Benjamin.
Yes.
Some people say that the Hong Kong ASEAN Free Trade Agreement is actually a step towards Hong Kong looking at being part of RCEP, the Regional Comprehensive Economic Partnership, because it's ASEAN +1. So is that the case, or is that just a rumor? Because if Hong Kong was part of RCEP, that would solve the problem.
Well, I think it is not really a question which I could answer because actually, you know, there are a lot of discussions out there in the market. So whether you term it as a rumor or not, actually, I don't think I'll be able to answer that.
Okay. Ramon, I think we've got a question before I bring Michael and Alex into some of the comments on the workability of the alliance and projects. I think there's a couple of questions maybe for Benjamin in this case.
Yes.
Yes. Some really excellent questions that are being thrown up here. Yeah. For example, one for you, Benjamin. How is Hong Kong repositioning itself to enhance its strategic relevance in logistics and transport between the world and China? Since main ports in China have created direct links, you know, whether it's rail, sea, air with the world, and e-commerce has also started to shift, right? So what's Hong Kong doing about this? What's your game plan? Let's get to the meat and potatoes here.
Yes. Now, infrastructure, again, is one thing which I mentioned. And at the same time, I think I also mentioned about the new structure in terms of what kind of cargo is flowing through here in Hong Kong. We have this project with Alibaba, the Cainiao, which they are building a logistics center over here in Hong Kong, a new one on the airport. Now, this one actually, of course, they will be leveraging on their excellence in terms of their technology. And at the same time, they have this line which says they would like to, their vision is that any fulfillment will be done in 24 hours in China, and then 72 hours anywhere around in the world. And of course, for this to happen, it is not only about the physical side. They need also have the software, the platform. So one project they are working on globally is to have a trading platform, including also custom, so that they will be able to smooth out and also improve the efficiency. Now, this is the angle that we are going toward to also. Because for Hong Kong, we are a small market and also a small city. So we are looking at the position of a transshipment hub, no matter it's for air or cargo. So this is something that we believe that technology will be needed. There are a few cases that we have on the technology company, which is, for example, this one, Flashport and also OpenPort. One is leveraging on the technology to have an integrated platform, and then the OpenPort is on blockchain. So I think the repositioning of that will be on technology on one hand, and on the other hand, also in terms of the structure, pharmaceutical, which was mentioned earlier, and I think which will be under even a higher demand after the pandemic. And then the other one is electronics related to technology, and also even under higher demand after the pandemic, because obviously what we are doing here right now is transforming previously from the physical interaction to electronic digital interaction. So this is what's happening, and together with it, for example, one element, for example, reverse logistics, because when you have electronics, then you have reverse logistics. So these are the elements that we are looking at.
Benjamin, one question on technology. It's absolutely correct that you should be driving technology as one of the big enablers to move you step forward. But is it not also the case that other cities in the Greater Bay Area are also applying technology, and therefore you're going to be in a technology race and competing for the same piece of the cake. How are you collaborating on the technology side, or is that being?
Yes, that's the beauty of the Greater Bay Area, to break down barriers. For China, Shenzhen is a big technology hub. You have Tencent there, you have Huawei there. So actually it's good in two aspects. One is that they have huge pool of talents. The whole of China, the talents, technology talents, they are being attracted into Shenzhen. And Shenzhen is just a river across from Hong Kong. So actually we will be able to make use of the talent. And at the same time, we can also work together with them on the technology projects. That's one thing. On the other hand, technology also needs financial resources to develop. Now, of course, Shenzhen also has its stock market, but it's mainly inward looking, whereas Hong Kong has an international stock market and fundraising center. So actually we can also supplement them in terms of the financial services, fundraising and different things. And at the same time, in terms of technology, of course, there will be issues like IP and things like that. And then Hong Kong, we will be also able to supply them with the international legal and arbitration services.
Right, excellent. No, I think it's correct. So you are basically promoting collaboration and sharing of technology, of ideas, of infrastructure to make the whole project more viable. Excellent. Right. I think we've got a few other good, couple more questions for Benjamin before we open the discussion on the practitioner side with Alex and Michael.
Yeah, I think there's a very interesting one, and it goes off on a slight tangent actually. In the immediate situation now, that means how is Hong Kong preparing herself to ensure the logistics industry workers' health and safety? The current situation is that Beijing is suspecting the COVID virus was transmitted via frozen fish, I think from Norway. Norway is denying that. So what is Hong Kong doing to help its workers from a health and safety perspective? Slight tangent here.
Okay. It's actually quite interesting because I think there are two aspects of this. One is actually people that are working on shore in the companies like, for example, Michael over here and also Alex. And at the same time, there are also a lot of people working on ship. Yesterday, I was talking with, I was speaking in another forum on the crew change. I don't know whether this is a popular topic for the audience over here, because this actually is a very serious matter because for the crews on board of ships, usually their contract term is 12 months. But then because of the quarantine procedure and the restriction of not allowing people to go into different countries, right. Then a lot of crews, they are forced to stay on board for over a year. And this is actually very straining in terms of their mental healthiness and also in terms of keeping them away from their family. And then there is also another question. So their crews, they are waiting on shore to get on board of the ships. If they are not able to do that, that means that they will have no income. So for this, actually, Hong Kong government, actually now we are facilitating the crew change here in Hong Kong. Initially, we allow crew change when they have cargo operations over here coming into Hong Kong, you know, loading or unloading cargo, and then they change the crew too. But now, even if they are not doing the cargo operation, for example, they're just coming in for bunkering, or even just coming in for crew change, the government is now allowing that. The main reason for that is because we believe we need to be fair to the crews. They are actually stuck in the sea for 12 months, a year, away from the family. So we need to do that. So that's one thing for people on the sea. And for those people that are actually here in the onshore working, now I think from the government's perspective, I think we look at whether they are being disadvantaged by the current economic situation. So we have this program of that for companies, if they want, they can apply for this funding from the Hong Kong government, and the Hong Kong government will be providing this compensation for the salary capped at 9,000 Hong Kong dollars per month for 6 months, so that they will be able to have income going into their pocket on one hand. On the other hand, we also ask the companies that they have to promise not to cut any jobs during this period. And then of course, the purpose is that we would like to make sure that there will be less people losing their job. So this is what we're doing right now.
So sticking on the topic of vulnerabilities, here's a question for Alex and Michael. Yeah. So what do you see as the big vulnerabilities in supply chain management? And what do you see as the mitigating actions that you need to take to ensure the supply chain stability? For example, do we expect to see trade volumes diverted to ASEAN or Singapore as a result of all that's happening in Hong Kong? So what do you see as the vulnerabilities? Michael, you first.
Yeah, that's a very good question. Thank you very much. I think we as supply chain managers actually have, to some extent, also to be blamed to have created the vulnerability of the supply chain, because we're trying to improve it day by day, making things faster, more reliable, enabling people not to have warehouses around anymore, to just deliver everything all the time whenever you need it. We are actually creating needs, or part of it, creating needs that maybe not even be necessary anymore. You know, if you order your television today, do you really need it tomorrow? If you produce a car, does your factory really have to close down if you don't get your part tomorrow? We've been kind of, practicing this over the many, many years. So I think this vulnerability has been kind of, produced by the industry. So now we find out during the pandemic that things cannot be delivered tomorrow anymore. And it's still okay. If the air freight prices go up to 10 times or 5 times, maybe we can put it onto rail through China. Maybe we can put it onto a ship. Maybe not the masks or the PPE goods, but the other things, suddenly, okay, they can come 2 weeks later, they can come 3 weeks later. We survive it. Maybe a car doesn't have to be produced in a day. So this vulnerability that we're facing right now is a vulnerability that maybe we have grown over the years and might not be so necessary. So this is actually a thing that we have to think about now. And the diverting that you said, diverting has always happened, and China and Hong Kong actually have also, influenced that to some extent by saying, okay, cheap things are not produced here anymore. They're produced in other countries because, our labor force is getting more expensive now. And we want to have South China or Shenzhen to be a technology center and not producing textiles anymore. That happened years ago. So there is a shift of things happening all the time. And there is a diversion both directions, I would say. Things are moving maybe from China to Vietnam to Myanmar, but other things are maybe moving from the States to China again, or from Europe to China. So this diversion is happening all the time, and it has to be done smart. And I think this diversion is not a problem. You just have to be on top of it, and you have to offer the right solutions to this diversion, I think.
Michael, before Alex comes in to answer the same question, could you maybe just elaborate whether the points that Benjamin was talking about, the Greater Bay area, will that increase or reduce the vulnerabilities of the supply chain management? And we're not just talking about just in time or lean or the things that maybe have precipitated the fragility of the supply chain, but in general.
I think if it's done well, and I'm quite confident about this, it should decrease the vulnerability, because if you put strengths together in the right way, 1 and 1 should be 3. That's what I always say, right?
Right.
And that's the idea here. Yeah.
Good. Thank you.
Alex, over to you. Short answer.
Yeah. What we think that, and we try to focus, is about the, no matter how change of the world, but or how shift of the supply chain to other country, but we think that we should always find the solution for the customer. For example, during this coronavirus period, that we in the very beginning, in I think in February, we already set up a contingency department to answer all the inquiry from our customer. Okay, from other maybe from other country. For example, they want to ship something into Thailand, whether now they can ship or they cannot ship. Is there any lockdown of that country or anything that we update every day in this department, centralized. Okay, so as a result, that we found that this is amazing for our customer, most of our customer. And later on, then some of the customer that is not handled by us, but they call us, and then they want to find a solution for them. Especially in this period is for the pharmaceutical products. When they ship some product into maybe Africa or some South America, they want to check with us whether they can ship or not. Okay, even though some very big cooler company, they cannot ship it because they have the dry ice including in boxes, but they cannot make sure that the dry ice will be melt away when during the long transit time. Okay, so when we think that we need to as a service provider, we need to think very clear and also our position to be a solution provider for them instead of just like a general freight forwarder, yeah, to move the product from one point to another point. This is very important nowadays. Okay.
So here's a question again for Michael and for Alex. Yeah, Benjamin showed a few examples earlier, Flexport and someone else. I can't remember who the other ones were, but about technology, a digital freight forwarder and technology. So here's a question for you, Michael, and then followed by Alex. It was asked by one of our participants in India, right? How is innovation and digitalization of the supply chain being considered in this new emerging scenario? What are you doing in innovation and digitalization? Michael, short answer from you.
Well, digitalization and innovation has been on the top of our list even before the crisis. We are growing more multinational here. It is absolutely necessary for our efficiency and also to reach our customers, which is becoming, you know, sometimes less and less transparent. And we just continue our way. It has become maybe even more important now, and we're happy that we started that in time.
Right. Okay, what about you, Alex? Thanks, Michael.
Yeah, for us that also we put this one as a very higher profile agenda for our company that regarding for the technology and enabling. Okay, so I can give you one example is that we have some temperature locker that is put in the pharmaceutical product together with them to check all the way from the door, from the manufacturer door to the end customer door. And they will record all the information, not only record all the information, but also they provide the real time, the temperature sense, temperature response to us.
Yep.
Okay, and also we set already the range of the temperature with the below or above the range that they will before that they will let us know, so that we can maybe we can check with the airlines or the terminal whether there is any problem, or we can check with the custom whether they put in the wrong side or maybe just they put outside of the cool room. Okay, so this kind of the technology is, I think, is a must and can save the life in this period.
Okay, so here's another question. You could say it's related depending on how you want to answer this. The question is again for Michael and for Alex. Yeah, what is the strategy that can be adopted to cushion the price impact that we're seeing? We all know that freight rates now are all over the place. So what are some of the strategies that you can adopt to cushion this price impact? Michael, you first.
Yeah, thank you. I come back to what I said before. I mean, we have to look at the supply chain again and see what is really necessary and what is not necessary, what has just been made necessary after a while. Maybe we have to go back and have, there's a new word that's been used a lot now called glocalization. It's a mix of globalization and localization, actually. And maybe we have to bring some of the products that are necessary closer to the consumer and go back into some kind of, storage solutions that have been avoided so much with these just-in-time deliveries. Some things will always have to go by air freight and fast, but it might have to be reduced a little, What do you really need tomorrow? And when do you need your goods where? We have to look at the supply chain again, a little more clearly with our customers, case by case, individually, and see what is sexy and what is necessary, I think.
Good point, Michael. What about yourself, Alex?
For our company, I think it's most of the need for the customer. Because if they, for example, we saw a lot of the cases of the coaching product at this moment that because they are time critical, just like as mentioned by Michael, that it seems that the customer or the manufacturer, they must ship it out so that they are willing to pay. So this kind of the product that we can negotiate and can give a good price to them. But some of the product, just like maybe shoes and garment, that in this period they stop to ship out the shipment. Yeah, because some of the maybe the customer, they don't want to pay, or they don't want to share any burden of the freight cost. So they are not allowed to they will not consider our price. As I think the people who gave us this question is about, he need to know we are the middleman. Okay, we are the trader, but we are not the trading product, but we are the trading service. So we have the cost, yeah, from the upstream provider, just like the shipping line and all the the airline. Yeah, so their price, if they are crazy, and we have no choice, we also have to sell it at a very crazy price.
Okay. All right. Thanks, Alex. Here's a last question before I hand you back to Joe.
Right.
This is for all the panelists, including yourself, Benjamin. It's quite an interesting question. Over the years, we've observed that Hong Kong is a bit rigid when it comes to certain commodities. Example, import and export of watches with batteries, liquor, perfumes, which is classified as DG cargo. So Hong Kong should look, or is this the case? And is Hong Kong looking at easing these restrictions to make business more viable?
Maybe I'll start from the government's perspective. Now, I think when it comes to battery and other kinds of DG cargo is, of course, for the purpose of safety, not only to the operators, but also to the general public. And I think for the past 5 years, actually, there were quite a number of incidents of lithium batteries getting on fire on board of a plane. So actually, I think this actually is issues that we have to be careful about. And from the government's perspective, actually, we follow the international guidelines and regulations. So I think that is what we are doing now. But then, of course, it actually is a very good question, and I would like to listen to also to our two panelists to see what they have in terms of suggestions to the government too.
What say you, Michael?
Okay, well, I'm a little surprised about this question, because I would have actually say that among all the other countries, maybe Hong Kong has been less rigid than other countries, actually. And that's why a lot has gone through Hong Kong in the last few years, actually. Screening at the airport is one story, where a year or two ago, only like 10% of the goods had to be screened mandatorily. And now we're catching up with the ECAO standards, where everything has to be screened in 2021. And to be honest, as Benjamin said correctly, if you talk about batteries, it's a safety thing, I mean, we're not into an industry that wants to misdeclare things. We don't want to be in an industry where we lose our licenses, So I think this is absolutely a must, and we'll have to find other solutions for this. And for liquors, I mean, honestly, again, Hong Kong is still a free trade zone, and we only have 2 or 3 exceptions. Very little, to be honest.
Great answer, Michael. So Hong Kong is actually, compared to the rest of the world, more open and more of an entrepot, yeah? I think that's
I would say so.
Yeah, Joe, back to you, Joe.
Okay, thank you. Thanks, everybody, and excellent questions, a very good discussion. We could go on all day. However, we need to wrap up because of time. So I'd like to ask the panelists now the final question. Let's not forget that our topic was Hong Kong continuing role as a logistics hub. I would like to ask Michael and Alex first, what are your final takeaways from this discussion, and what should we now do post-coronavirus? And then I'll ask Benjamin to have the last word in terms of what his views are. So Michael, would you like to go first? So what are your takeaways about logistics, the Hong Kong continuing as a logistics hub, and what do we now need to plan post-coronavirus?
Okay, first of all, I think the Hong Kong logistics hub has never been and is also not in danger now. I think the importance might be even growing together with the Greater Bay development here. Hong Kong is still the major and favorite gateway for China for the international world. And it will remain that as long as low banking tax and freedom are around here. And I think that will stay because it's in everyone's interest, including China. So I think there's nothing really to worry here, to be honest. So what will we change? I already talked about it a little. We have to change a little maybe the thoughts about the supply chain management, and we have to be a little more creative and flexible to changes while airports are closed and things like that. But that's our job, so I'm not really worried again.
Excellent. Thank you, Michael. Alex, the same question to you.
For myself, I think that I have a very good confidence about our future in the logistics in Hong Kong. It's especially for the air freight industry, because we have quite a lot of the traffic rights to other countries. This is the accumulated assets for so many years, not only for these 10 years. So this one make us more competitive to the GBA areas, yeah, to other cities. And because of this, so the government also, they will willing to save Cathay Pacific at this moment. And the other is we have one also key thing to make further explanation explore is about, we have a very good cargo terminal in Hong Kong. It's not in terms of the size, but in terms of the operation manager, the efficiency, and the management inside. Okay, right. China, apart from the GPA city, they can build a very big terminal, but they cannot make use very efficient of it. Okay, right. So but Hong Kong is the place that we proven that we can do it. Okay, even though a very small area, but we can break the record in the world that to hit the cargo volume. The other one is about the transit hub in Hong Kong. And we understand that government is doing the right thing that to attract the investment of the Alibaba to Hong Kong. One of the key major sources of the air freight base cargo is about change from electronic to e-commerce. Okay, so this is one of the idea that the government want to get they want to buy the business, come into Hong Kong, and then use Hong Kong as a hub to move to other country. It's because we have the very good connectivity to other country already. And the other is we also have the record, something about the, I think 60% of our cargo from Hong Kong move out is from other country to Hong Kong and then to move out to other country. Yes, regarding is the, I think it's the 6th freedom rights of the airlines. Yeah, so they can move from other country, for example, India or Singapore or Australia to Hong Kong to other country. Okay. So this is make us more choice to the other country to provide to the customer.
Excellent, thank you, Alex. Clearly, some very interesting comments there. Positive comments, but also backed up by facts, backed up by actions, backed up by legacy, backed by technology, and also encouraging actions by the government. Having said that, Benjamin, that's a good starting point to wrap up where we're going. Yes. But things are moving because other cities and other ports will also be competing in this race to catch up. What are your takeaway views now, please, Benjamin?
Right. I would first of all share a slide which my colleague and us prepared. Now, from the government's perspective, I think logistics is very strong in the firefighting. We are firefighting throughout the day. Their cargo is moving 24/7. So now, so the industry actually is very good in fighting against the all odds. So I think the industry will be able to find the right structure and mix of their activities to make it work. And of course, I believe technology will be a big driving force behind it. Now, for us, we believe Hong Kong, we've been doing very well in terms of logistics because our connectivity and also location. But in terms of the economic structure, we are actually very narrow. So I think also with the GBA, it will be an area which we could expand our economic structure to make it more conducive and to be richer for the logistics industry. Now, as it says over here, it says he that will not sell till all dangers are over must never put to sea. So I think is a very a good message, which is quite similar to the Chinese saying, when there are danger, there are opportunities. So I think that's very important.
Right, excellent. Gentlemen, thank you very much for a very interesting discussion. We could expand this even further. Benjamin, thank you for your insights into what's happening in Hong Kong and the Greater Bay Area. We are very encouraged to hear the very important point about collaboration. This is what people always wonder, you know, are you doing something independent to what China's doing? Are you doing something that's different? But to hear that you're doing it in collaboration in a very smart way, we really appreciate this, and we wish you all the very best and success in this project. To Mike and Alex, thank you very much for your inputs. Thank you very much for your insights in what's going on. Very positive, but also quite cautious in going to the next phase of our development. I'd like to thank all the audience for their participation. There are many questions, many people on the call, and we've answered some of the questions, but there are many more that we will try to answer later on. Again, thank you very much for your time. And
Joe, just one last point.
Yes.
LogiSYM Digital next week.
All right.
Make sure you sign up. 1,000 participants.
The president always has the last word. Gentlemen, thank you very much. Stay well and stay safe. All the best.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.